And we are live. Hi, Mike Barron.
Hi, Ivan, and all the ships at sea.
Can I say it like that? Like Mike? Hi, Mike.
Sure. Yeah, Mike, that's what the people
Yeah.
call me.
'Cause, here in France, we are very respectful, so we need to ask first. No, but I really thank you for accepting my invitation. It's an honor. Kind of surreal to have you. I'm a big fan of your work. Um, so I don't know. Most of the time, I ask my guests to introduce themselves. If you
I'd be
want,
happy to do that.
so
My name is Mike Barron. I've been a comic book writer all my life. I write novels as well. I broke into comics in 1981 with Nexus, a science fiction superhero I created with my partner, the artist Steve Rude. We were lucky. We were in the right place at the right time. Capital City Distribution, the second largest comic book distributor in the world at the time, decided they were going to launch their own line of comics, and ours was the first title they chose. And they only managed to put out uh, 9 issues of Nexus before they realized they didn't know what they were doing. So they sold the rights to First Comics. And for at least 10 years after that, I wrote Nexus and Badger for First. Uh, and then First was circling the drain, and Mike Richardson purchased the rights to Nexus. And in an act unprecedented before or since, he returned those rights to Steve Rude and me, so we own Nexus.
that's
Badger,
that's kind of itself is a sci-fi story these days.
Badger is owned by First Comics. Ken Levin, the publisher, he's a pretty easygoing guy. He lets me pursue projects if I wish, although he himself may not publish them. And I'm preparing a Badger novel. Now, a couple months ago, I crowdfunded a Nexus novel. Here it is. And it was very
Awesome.
successful. And the people are loving it. So I'm writing another one. But I'd already
Great.
finished the Badger novel, and we'll probably launch that sometime this fall. And as you know, we're crowdfunding Florida Man, a graphic novel
Mm.
based on my novel, the novel that I did for Wolfpack Publishing. This is my most successful novel by far, and
That's
it's a
crazy. That's
yeah
cool.
it's a departure for me. As a writer, I'm all over the place. I write thrillers. There are 8 out in my biker series about a reformed motorcycle hoodlum. I have written 3 horror novels: Banshees, Scorpio, and Domain. Uh, And one day I decided to write a Florida Man novel because these Florida Man stories kept coming at me and coming at me. I don't know if you're aware of the phenomenon, but virtually every day there are 1 or 2 new Florida Man stories, straight news stories with outrageous headlines. Florida Man claims syringe found in rectum is not his. Florida Man leads police on 3.5 hour chase through Walmart attic.
Yeah.
Florida man arrested for defecating on traffic from light
What's
pole.
happening in Florida? Is the water is
No, I think that it's because it's the lowest part of the United States. It's like a
Mm.
sock, and all the
like a
weirdos, all the weirdos shake down into the bottom of the sock, and there are a lot of people in Florida with bad judgment. And they snort methamphetamines and they shoot
Oh.
up and they smoke dope and they get drunk and they make bad decisions.
Mm.
I decided to write this as a humorous novel. The novel is not scabrous or disgusting like many of the Florida Man stories are, but it's very funny and often
Mm.
risque. In many ways, my protagonist, Gary Duba, is the most admirable character in the book. He's quick tempered. He's always looking for a get rich quick scheme. He makes bad decisions. He likes to get drunk. He likes to get high, but he's got a good heart. And if you read the book, you'll see what I mean. And you'll also
No.
burst out laughing multiple times. The reviews have been very favorable. I love the one where the guy says, my wife became so irritated that I kept bursting out laughing. She left the room. Or I had to wipe the tears from my eyes on every other page. It's a funny book. And
Yeah.
I'm very happy with it. So we decided to turn it into a graphic novel. Let me just post that art on your page, because this is the cover art that launched everything. It was by Todd Mulrooney is the artist.
Mm.
And when my publisher saw this cover, he did the cover for the comic book, but it ended up being the cover of the graphic novel finally. I mean, first it was going to be a comic, but when I had written 5 scripts, I realized I had a very detailed outline for a novel, so I decided to write the novel first. And I showed it to my publisher. It's not my publisher's usual thing. My publisher's Wolfpack, and they usually do thrillers, westerns, suspense, and crime. And he read it and says, I want this. And a month later, it was in print. And I've since written a sequel called Hogzilla, which has the same cover, but different art. No, it has the same art, but a different logo. And I'm going to do a third one. And the third one's going to have a completely new cover. In fact, I have this outrageous cover that Pat Broderick did for me. I hope you don't mind if I post it here, because your mind will be blown.
Are you know how to post it? It's online, or you can send it to me to my Facebook.
Okay.
If it's an image, you can send it to me on Facebook. If it's a link, you can just post it on the chat.
I know where it is. I often I forget how I save these things. I have so many. Here it is.
So you start to, what was first, writing novels and then writing comics, or?
No, although I originally set out to write novels. That's what my original goal was. But I was lucky enough to run into Steve Rude at the right time in the right place. And I'd always loved comics, and I always wanted to do comics. And I'd been writing some comics too over the years. But when I met the dude, something just clicked. And I went home and I wrote those first 12 pages of Nexus by drawing them all out by hand, which is how I used to write all my comics for over 15 years. I drew each page out by hand. The art's not the greatest, but it's good enough to get my ideas across. And editors and artists loved it because you could see at a glance what I was doing. And the only reason I stopped was because it was giving my back too many problems. I didn't have a drawing board and I was hunched over, So now I write full script. But I believe my writing is better than ever. It really, it's not the method that you use; it's the finished product that counts. As we know, as so many artists are switching to digital these days.
Yeah. So you send me the image, or?
Yeah, it's on your Facebook page.
On my Facebook. Okay. On the timeline. I was looking for it on the chat.
Oh, I don't know how to do that. I don't think
No, but it's great.
Yeah, no, I can't do art in the chat. Beyond me.
No problem. There's always a way. And
and let me show you the cover to the Badger novel. Let's see if you can get that up there. Yeah, that's Hogzilla by Pat Broderick. I think that's just brilliant. I can't wait to see it colored.
Yeah, no, that's really great. So can you tell us a little about this character?
Gary Duba? The Florida man?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Gary's just a redneck living in a trailer down by the swamp. Gary's having a bad day. There's a snake in his toilet, a rabid raccoon in the yard, and his girl Crystal's in jail for getting naked at a Waffle Hut and licking the manager. So Gary sets off with his best friend Floyd to sell his prize Barry Bonds rookie card to raise the $500 needed for bail. But things get out of hand. And the first thing that gets out of hand is he gets in a road rage incident with a woman in a Ford convertible as they're rolling down the highway toward the pawn shop, and they're shooting at each other. And Gary and his friend finally veer off the highway to avoid killing anyone. But they don't know that that woman is a state judge, and they're going to run into her later on. It's like Gary keeps setting traps for himself. He keeps stepping on rakes. He's always looking for the next get-rich-quick scheme, and some of them are pretty outrageous. I guess it's no secret to tell you that in the first part of the graphic novel, he wins the lottery. He wins $7 million, and he buys a ranch, or a mansion, a mansion. And within 6 months, the police are coming to evict him because he can't hang on to a dime. He spends it all. He gives it away to his friends. He buys lots of toys, and within 6 months, he's broke. And it's like that for the whole novel. He's up, he's down, he's up, he's down. Gary's always looking for a get-rich-quick scheme, and there's just one after the other. And one of them
that sounds like a great TV show, also.
Oh yeah, I think it's outrageously funny. I say that because I laughed while I wrote it.
Yeah, no, but that's great. It reminded me a little like I don't know, the well, I'm sure you saw Breaking Bad.
Yeah, I love Breaking Bad.
Yeah, but I love more Better Call Saul.
Well, it's funny you should mention that because there's a character in the book called Habib Rodriguez. He's kind of a sleazy lawyer who plays a very big role. He's one of Gary's close friends, and Habib is a little bit inspired by Saul, but more by a local ambulance chaser we have here in Colorado called Franklin Azar, the strong arm. And I watched Judge Judy, and Franklin advertises a lot on Judge Judy. He says, "Were you in an automobile accident and the insurance company didn't give you what you deserve? You call me, Frank Azar, the strong arm. You don't pay a penny unless we collect."
Yeah, no, I found that character so funny because it's funny, a character that could be an asshole. If you portray it in a certain way, you feel kind of sympathy.
Yeah, you empathize with him. Yeah. I think that Saul Goodman, or Jimmy McGill, as his real name is, I identify with him a great deal. I mean, he makes a lot of mistakes, but I feel that he's got a good heart too.
Yeah, of course. It's not like sometimes, most of the time in history, they portray character black and white, but life is not like that. There's a lot of shades of gray sometimes. So I think that's a little.
I think that in many ways it's just as good, if not better, as Breaking Bad.
Yeah,
maybe because Saul is a more sympathetic character.
Yeah. So I'm sorry I interrupt you a little, but I would like to know how you get to write all that. You start like being a comic book fan.
Yes.
Or
and a reader, an avid reader.
When you were a kid, you were a fan, like, I don't know, Batman or Superman.
Uncle Scrooge.
What?
Uncle Scrooge. You know about Uncle Scrooge, don't you?
Yeah. So that was your favorite comic book?
This is a Carl Barks original that he sent me when I was 12 years old.
No, really?
Yes.
That's crazy. So that was your first,
pardon?
That was your first kind of.
Yeah, Uncle Scrooge were the first comics that spoke to me and got me really excited, and I realized, well, this is more than just your average dumb comic book.
Mm,
which you scan through and you forget immediately. No, the Uncle Scrooge and the Donald Ducks that Carl Barks did weren't like that. They had depth. They grabbed you by the throat. You cared what happened to them. You couldn't
mm,
wait to find out what happens next.
mm,
And that's the essential question in all fiction is
mm.
what happens next. And the reader has to care in order to turn the page.
Sure.
Uh, so I was absorbing all this as a child. And the other big influence on me was an American pulp writer named John D. MacDonald. In
Mm,
particular, his Travis McGee series. Now, you may not have heard of John D. MacDonald, but he wrote Cape Fear, which has been turned into a
mm.
movie twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my biker series is my attempt to do a Travis McGee type series, and it's a type well known to thriller readers. It's Philip Marlowe, it's Jack Reacher, it's a tarnished knight who must go down these mean streets to carry out his own brand of justice. And my
Mm,
protagonist, Josh Pratt, he's a motorcycle hoodlum who went to prison and found God in prison and comes out and tries to turn his life around. And he's one of those courts of last resort that desperate people turn to when they can't get justice anywhere else.
mm.
So he takes on some pretty horrendous cases. It's grim stuff. Uh, but there are always flashes of humor. There's flashes of humor in everything I do. In Florida Man, it's all humor with flashes of grimness.
Yeah. No, but that's great. So that was some of your influence, but like in the superhero realm, what was your first character that impressed you in your
Well,
journey?
I was probably Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., as done by Steranko.
Mm,
Because first of all, the graphics were eye-popping. I'd never seen anything like that.
yeah, that's great.
You rarely see anything like that these days.
Yeah, I used to have the number one, and I had to sell it because I was broke. That was painful.
But
But
I
yeah,
also,
Nick Fury is great. And what do you think about the adaptation to film of Nick Fury?
the what about the film?
The adaptation of the character.
Oh, Nick Fury.
Mm,
Well, you mean not? Uh, there was that one actor, the Hoff. David Hasselhoff did a version. We're
yeah.
not talking about that. You mean the Samuel L. Jackson version?
Yes. No, but I remember the David Hasselhoff version. I think
Yeah.
the aesthetic was not bad, but yeah, the acting.
Always cheesy stuff back in the day. They didn't take it seriously like they do today,
Yeah.
and that's why the Samuel L. Jackson version is so much more effective
Mm,
because even though there's a great deal of humor in those films,
mm,
they take themselves seriously
yeah.
and they don't wink at the audience, which
Mm,
will rip you out of your suspension of disbelief. And that's why I never liked Roger Moore as James Bond.
mm,
He winked at the audience, It's
yeah.
all a
But
joke for
there
you.
are some characters that do it on purpose, like Deadpool, for example.
Yeah,
But that's
Deadpool
kind of
is.
different.
Yeah, it is. It's and what makes Deadpool work is that they don't hold back on anything. Anything goes in a Deadpool movie,
Mm,
so they're not limited by like a PG rating or anything.
yeah. No, that's great. So the first comic how you entered into the industry was with like you were saying you meet what with Nexus.
Well, Nexus was how I broke into comics and why I had
But
a career in comics.
before you were trying to.
Before I was working at an insurance company when I met Steve Rude. I had lived in Boston for 7 years as a journalist working for newspapers in Boston.
Mm,
And I just got fed up and I moved back to Madison, Wisconsin and took a job at an insurance company, which I hated. And one day I got a call from an editor and said, there's some guy down here trying to sell us his drawings and he draws just like you. which is ridiculous, of course. The guy had, guy couldn't tell art from art. But so I met Steve, and he showed me his stuff, and we just decided to hook up. And as I said, we were in the right place at the right time.
It's kind of like a rock band, for example. When you find the right person, there's kind of
That's true.
some magic.
That's true.
Created.
I've had that luck with many artists over the years.
But it happened or not, I think. It's not something that could be forced.
No, I've also had bad experiences with artists over the years.
Yeah. So you start with Nexus, BADGER. Can you talk a little about BADGER? How was the inspiration?
I saw Jeff Butler's art on a poster down on campus, so I sought him out because I could see he was a good artist. I said, Jeff, do you want to do a comic? And he said, sure. And I said, well, Jeff, what do you want to draw? He says, oh, I want to draw druids. So I wrote this 12-page story about a cantankerous druid named Ham who so offended his neighbors that they put him in a coma and hired a bunch of Vikings to drop him off the edge of the earth. Only they didn't come to the edge of the earth. They came to the New World, and they carried him inland as far as they could get, which turned out to be Wisconsin, and they buried him there. So I made an appointment to see the boys who published Nexus. I said, I got another one for you. And they said, well, come on in and show us. So we went in, and we showed them the 12 pages, which were beautiful. and I'll never forget, Milton said, nah, we don't want any druids. Give us a costume superhero. So I'm walking out, and I'm thinking, why would anybody put on a costume and fight crime? They'd have to be crazy. And that was inspiration number one. Because I was reading The Minds of Billy Milligan at the time, which was a factual book about a multiple personality. So I decided to make Badger a multiple personality. He is a multiple personality. He has 7 personalities, only one of whom is a costume crime fighter. The rest are all over the place. There's Leroy, a dog. There's Grover Gastineau DePaul, who's a tough inner city black. There's Pierre is a gay architect. No, excuse me. Maxwell is the gay architect. I'm losing track of my personalities. I must get my personalities. Pierre is a mass murderer. Maxwell is the gay architect. And I just started writing these stories, and they were all stream of consciousness stuff. Most were very funny. Some of them were grim because we were forced to confront the reality of multiple personality disorder, which is caused by serious childhood trauma.
Yeah.
So I did a series for Dark Horse about that called The Shattered Mirror, and Jill Thompson was the artist. And that was a pretty grim series, but it was entertaining. And that's the first job of the writer, is to entertain. But a lot of us like grim entertainment. I like grim entertainment myself. Most of my movies, my favorite movies, are crime dramas. But we also love to laugh, and I love all sorts of stuff. I mean, I love all sorts of entertainment. I especially love musicals. I would write one if I could. So I'm walking down State Street in Madison, Wisconsin. It's Badger Liquors, Badger Posters, Badger School Supplies. And it hit me. My new character was called the Badger. So Jeff says, well, I don't want to waste those 12 pages. They're too good. I said, all right, we'll work them into the story. So if you get the first issue of the Badger, you'll notice that it begins with 12 pages of Ham. And only 12 pages in does he hook up with the Badger in a mental institution. And that's how Ham met Badger.
That's crazy. No, but that's great. I think when you have room for experiment is when you come up with most of the best ideas. That I don't know if you have the same room when you were working for Marvel or DC.
I lived in a condo. My table was a wooden door sitting on 2 file cabinets, and I would sit there and sketch out my pages at that table. I always carry a notepad and a pen, and I urge every writer to do that. because you never know when an idea is going to strike, and you want to write it down. Writing it down helps fix it in your memory. Also, saying it out loud helps fix it in your memory, and I do that all the time. If I see something I want to remember, I say it out loud.
Yeah, that's true. But no, that's great because I don't know, it's kind of unique. Have you seen the movie Glass?
Yes.
It reminds you a little what you were.
Yes. Yes, I thought that that he did a very good job portraying a multiple personality, and that actor in particular.
That could be a good Badger.
He could. He was very impressive. I was very impressed with how he handled that. James Purfoy, I think, is his name.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. No, but what I was saying before was like that was in your beginning when you were working for what's the company first? No,
Capital. First was Capital, then
yeah.
First.
They leave you room to experiment to.
I never had a taste of editorial interference while I worked for First Comics. They just took whatever I gave them and put it out straight, because my goal is to entertain. I have 3 rules that guide me as a writer. And rule number 1 is it's my job to entertain. I know it may seem simple, it may seem obvious, but if you look through the comics being published today, it's not obvious at all, because very few comics are entertaining. And the second rule is to show, don't tell. And that means that any bit of information to propel the story that you can transmit to the reader or the viewer without words, you should. And save your words for characterization. Now, you can use a little exposition, in words, that's fine, as long as you don't rely on it too heavily. And that brings us back to Better Call Saul, because anybody who watches Better Call Saul notes that it usually begins with a long, silent sequence, like at least 5 minutes, where you see things happening,
but
and
you
don't know
understand
why. But you're intrigued. But at the end of that sequence, you go, aha, I know what's going on.
Yeah,
and the third rule is to be original.
That's the hardest, I think.
I don't know. I mean, we're all unique human beings, and we all bring our personal experience to whatever it is that we write, and the secret is to tap into that and present it to the reader.
Take risk. I think that's a kind of price to pay to be original, because if you follow what everyone is doing, sometimes it's hard. But I don't know. I think there's a lot of not only in comic book, in art in general, it's more easy to keep doing what everyone else is doing, that kind of take a risk and propose something different, like you did with Badger. You could have gone.
I have no idea what anyone else is doing. To tell you the truth, I've hardly read any comics in the past 10 years. I only read the comics that my friends send me, or a handful which I've supported. And most of them aren't very good.
Yeah, no, for sure. But so you were working for First Comic, and then what was your first how you entered to DC or Marvel?
Carl Potts was a big fan of the Badger, and he was an editor at Marvel, and he called me up and asked if I would like to write the Punisher, and I would love to write the Punisher.
And you knew the Connector?
Oh yes, yeah. I knew what he was, and I'd read some stories, and the best of the lot at that stage was the series Stephen Grant did with Mike Zeck, and that pointed in a direction that the Punisher should go. I mean, he was not a throwaway character; he's a serious character. And I approached it as a straight crime story for the first 3 years. There were no superheroes. There was no ultra science fiction. I think the Kingpin was in there because the Kingpin can be a realistic character.
Yeah.
And Doctor Doom was in there a couple of times, but it was all done in a realistic manner, with no death rays or flying through the air or anything like that. But after 3 years, I think Carl was kicked upstairs, and I got a new editor, and he wanted to integrate it more closely with the Marvel Universe. So we
Mm.
started having guest appearances by the X-Men and things like that. But my druthers is to approach it as a straight crime story, like Garth Ennis did.
Yeah. No, for me, what you did with this is wonderful because it's so real, and at the same time, I don't know, because most of the people saw the Punisher like kind of machine that only kills, and you give him like a human side, you know, introspection. I don't know. I just love it. All the stories that you make, especially the story that you made with Daredevil, because I think when
Oh, thank you.
they meet
Those were
when they
good stories.
yeah, no,
I
they're great.
I approached Frank uh, with several realizations. One, that he was Sicilian. He was obviously Italian, and his original name was
Castiglione.
Castiglione. Yeah, and second, he was Catholic, and
But
he was a guilt-ridden Catholic.
you came up with that, like the his background that he was Italian. Really? Well, that's great. Yeah, no, that's awesome. And yeah, no, everything you did in that first series, I just love it.
Thank
Uh,
you.
yeah, I remember this issue when he kind of almost find a new woman, Conchita,
Yeah, yeah. Well, Frank's
and
only a man.
and she, and she died too. Like what the fuck?
Well, I know. It was
No, but
kind of a tragedy.
yeah, no, but this one is great with Daredevil because
Thank
it's
you.
like the Jin and Jan. But um, what at so you have like a kind of complete freedom when you were on Marvel at that time, or they tell you, yeah, you can say that, you can do that.
I had to get permission to use certain characters, and I approached them, and they said, "No, no, you can't do that because those characters are involved in some convoluted storyline that's going on right now,
Mm,
and it would interrupt our continuity." So it was not like writing my own characters,
mm,
although I love the Punisher, and I would be happy to return to the character, but it's a corporate character, and I understand that.
mm. But they never like say, yeah, Mike, you're taking it too far. Like this is for kids.
Oh no, I
No.
don't think so. No, I don't recall that at all. Because the Punisher is clearly for a more mature audience.
Yes.
Uh, I mean, Spider-Man is for the kids, and of course they hold Spider-Man kicking and screaming into R-rated territory from time to time. But if you're going to turn out 100,000 different stories about the same guy, that's inevitable.
Mm. And what's your inspiration to write all those stories? Was like, I don't know, watching the TV or
Well,
did you some.
inspiration comes from everywhere. And in the case of Punisher, I was drawing on the news. The Rev series was obviously based on Jim Jones and the
Mm,
congregation he took down to Ecuador or Guatemala or whatever it was, and they all drank the Kool-Aid and died.
yeah.
And other stories were inspired by true life events and also my own imagination.
Mm. And the idea of writing well, I don't want to make a mistake because there's so many So miniseries of the Punisher. When he started to write a diary, who you know who idea was that? That he started to write the diary and talk it with himself?
I'd have to go back and look. I suspect it was mine.
Because I think that was great. Because at this, is a loner, but he so it's kind of clear that he need to you create kind of a dialogue with himself that I think is so great. So
If it was in issues number 1 through 65, I wrote it.
yeah, no, I think was your like what it take me to the next Microchip. That
Well, Microchip was a necessary character because Punisher couldn't do it all alone, and he had all these
yeah.
toys and gadgets. And he said he has to have tech support,
Oh,
and that's where Microchip came from.
yeah, no, and I think was great. And the backstory too. He was kind of fat, so it's kind of real. It's not like a muscular guy. No, I think that's great. It was really original. It's not like Robin. You know, no, that was really cool. And what do you think about the take that they did of that character on the Punisher TV show? You saw it?
I saw a couple episodes, and I think John Bernthal is a fine actor, and
Mm,
he really is very convincing, except for one thing, which is that I think the Punisher should be like 6'2", and
mm,
John is like 5'9" or something.
yeah,
Uh, but I like the stories. I like the way they did them. I think that physically the best Punisher was Ray Stevenson
yeah,
in
definitely.
War
Like
Journal.
physically,
Yeah,
is the more accurate.
but the TV show was better drama than the movies. There are three
Mm.
Punisher movies. I don't know why they can't get them right. It's the simplest thing in the world. If you want to see the Punisher done right, see the Equalizer starring Denzel Washington. I mean, that's what people want. And to
Yeah.
my mind, that those two Equalizer movies are two of the greatest crime revenge dramas of that type you'll ever find.
Mm. Yeah, no, for sure. But you have seen the Microchip because he
Well,
appeared in the second season. No, in the
yeah,
first
I
season.
saw what they did with Microchip, and I mean, yeah, they can do what they like. It's their character now.
Yeah, of course. But well, it was so different from the original, but it was not that bad, I think. But you could stick to the original story that was great.
Well, I think making him a nerd was uh, the guy that played him in War Journal was really good. I think it was Newman from Seinfeld,
Mm.
uh, which was much more the type I had in mind
Yeah,
because
that was that was great. On Warzone, yeah, no, definitely was more likely. So you stay at the Punisher, then you write War Journal too, I
I wrote
think.
a number of war journals.
Yeah, and then you stay in Marvel, and when you jump to the other side.
Well, I didn't jump. An editor there, Mike Gold, invited me to write The Flash, which I was happy to do.
But you were working with both companies at the same time.
Sure, a lot of people did.
You can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So they ask you to write the Flash, and how how was your take with the character?
Well, I
To
had one good idea, and that was that the Flash burned so much energy that he had to eat
that's
20,000 calories a
yeah.
day and never get fat. And the other was that he was a young man on the make and a bit of a rake and not the nicest guy in the world. But it made for a compelling character. But after a year, I just ran out of ideas. That would not happen to me today. And I look back and regret giving up that title. I just said, Mike, I don't know what to do next. I'm going to have to get off the book.
Mm.
But
But
it
maybe
is,
you wanted to make something else.
well, I always have, but it just took a long time for me to master the novel. And it wasn't until like 20 years after I wrote Flash that I felt that I had it. And I've been
Mm,
trying to write novels the whole time this was going on. Uh,
mm.
and I'd look back at my stuff and I realized it was crap. This is not a good story. And
Really?
then I had a very difficult period for about 10 years where I hardly did any writing at all. And I took any job I could. And I had to move from Wisconsin to Colorado. It was for my
Mm.
late wife. Uh, and she said, "We got to move or I'm going to die." So we moved out here. And 3 years later, she died anyway. And it was all a big
Whoa.
Chinese fire drill, as far as I'm concerned. But I don't regret anything because that experience helped me grow as a writer. And then one day, finally, I decided to take another crack at it, and I had a great idea for a story about a satanic rock band that comes back from the dead. And I was writing Banshees, and I was like a third of the way through it, and I realized I'm there. This is good. I don't have any doubts about my writing. I know that this is gripping stuff. But it took a long time with a large cost, and I don't think everybody has to go through that. It's just that I'm a slow learner. When I get it, I get it. I mean, we all know of phenomenons who write a bestseller in their 20s, uh, like Carson McCullers, who wrote "The Heart is a Lonely Hunter." I think she was 26 or 27, and William Styron, who wrote "Look Back in Anger" when he was like 28 or 29, and Harper Lee, who wrote "To Kill a Mockingbird" when she was 30. But you look at Harper Lee, that was it. Now it's true they brought out a novel of hers about 5 or 6 years ago from an undiscovered manuscript, but it was panned. She only had the one book in her. Others have a lot of books in them. They start young and they keep going, like
Mm.
William Styron. He went on to be a great novelist.
Yeah. No, but I think in every art is kind of the same. Is you have to practice to develop your art. It's not
That's
like,
right. That's right.
yeah,
I believe that every would-be writer has a million words of junk clogging up his system,
yeah. It's
and you
happened
have
with
to
me.
get that out
Yeah,
before you get to the good stuff. So the answer to anything is to sit down and write.
yeah.
Do it every day.
It's the same with music. I have some friends when we start very young. They were looking for the perfect song, you know, like, and they spend years on the perfect album, and I didn't care. For me, like a piece of work is like a picture, you know. It could be a paint, a song, a comic book. It's just a picture of that moment, or the best you can do at that time, and then you throw it into the world and they say, yeah, I love it, or no, it's crap, and you learn and you move on and you evolve. But if you get stuck in your head looking for the perfect stuff, you will never evolve. And there, I have some friends that was kind of victim of that kind of seek of perfection that will never will never catch.
Well, I also believe in the the element of surprise.
Mm,
Uh, and before I start a project, I work out a detailed outline. And the outline is designed to excite interest in the project in and of itself. It's not just for me, it's for anybody who wants to know what the story is about. But when you start writing the story and you make your characters real, there will come a time in the story when the character will tell you what he's going to do next.
yeah.
And there are also times when I will add things to a story early on without really knowing what their final role is. And then as I near the end of the book, I realize that they're the key to the puzzle.
Yeah. No, that's great.
A writer
No,
has to surprise himself before he can surprise others.
yeah, exactly. And it happened to you, for example, when you watch a movie that you try to guess the end,
No, I never do that.
but even without doing it on purpose, it didn't happen
You
to
know,
you.
I mean, there are some movies you start watching
And you say,
and
"Oh, okay, is the she's dead."
there's the killer.
Yeah, yeah. No, because I I'm really fan of writing or scenarios of comic book or anything, movies, and I love, like you say, the element of surprise. and and sometimes when I watch a movie, I didn't do it on purpose, but I can see like the pieces of the puzzle that, and then you say, "Oh fuck, yeah, I know who, I
Have
know who
have
did it."
have you seen Red Belt?
No.
It's a David Mamet film,
Mm,
and it's quite surprising. David Mamet is one of my favorite filmmakers. He wrote the script for The Edge with Alec Baldwin and Anthony Hopkins
mm.
about the two men in the Alaskan wilderness. He wrote Glengarry Glen Ross,
How
Buffalo
you
Nickel.
how you write the movie? The name of the movie? Or it's a book? No.
It's a movie. These are all
Yeah.
movies. He has written books.
What is the name of the movie?
Red Belt.
Red Belt.
Red Belt. It's a martial arts thriller. It's the most intellectual martial arts thriller you'll ever see.
It's from 2008. A jiu-jitsu instructor, Mike Terry, who tries to make ends meet, refused to compete in the ring. He's forced to return to the ring in order to raise money after his death. Well, okay. Yeah. No, I will watch it for sure. And you are a fan of martial art?
Oh, yes.
What you do? Or what you did, or you still practice, or
Yes, I still practice. I trained yesterday. It nearly killed me. It's 90 degrees out here, and you know, I've been
and what
doing it a
you
long.
and what you do? What
Well, we were doing some karate forms because since the virus has hit,
mm,
uh, I haven't been sparring lately. I'm 71 years old, but I did go in
that you
and
look really good.
I had been doing this form for 10 years, and I thought I knew it, and I did it for my instructor Kim Yi, and Kim showed me stuff, and I thought, man, I've been doing it all wrong all this time. I really must be slow. And another thing that happens is there was a young black belt in there. He was in his 20s,
Ah,
and he did the form, and I just saw how much more powerful and flowing it was when he did it. And then Kim explained it all to me, what I had to do and what I was doing wrong. And now I look forward to getting back in there and working on the form and making it
mm.
better. And I know how to do
And
that now.
what
It
kind of
became better
style?
right there. Well, this was uh, it, it's karate, and if you want to, here, let me type the name of their website in here so you can take a look.
Sure.
But Kim is well versed in all manner of martial arts, including Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, and Kung Fu, and he teaches a little bit of everything, as every good school must.
Hmm. And what do you think about the evolution of martial arts, like with mixed martial arts now, like UFC and all that?
Big fan. Big fan.
You're a fan of
Oh
UFC?
yeah. Oh yeah.
You have
In fact,
and
go ahead.
you have a favorite, I don't know, martial artist? So this is the site of Karate West Inc. This is your teacher?
No, well, those are two kids, but that's the school.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are pictures there. It's the people somewhere.
classes, blog.
But I'd be happy to send you a picture of Kim and I if you like. Uh, what was I? Oh,
Ah,
I watch all sorts of martial arts. There's Kim right there in the
amazing.
middle of that, very in the very middle, kneeling.
That look impressive.
Her name is Sarah.
Oh, that's cool.
But as a spectator, I admire many martial artists. I admire anybody who has the guts to go in the ring. George St. Pierre has always been a favorite of ours. Of course,
Yeah,
he's no longer competing. I like Damian Maya.
but
I've
he
been
he compete. I think last year he made.
really,
Yeah,
yeah.
and
Well,
he
it is
keep.
a young man's game. And I mean, have you seen Israel Adesanya? He's the current middleweight champ, I believe.
Yeah, he
Yeah,
look
he's
like a
phenomenal.
Spider-Man.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
It's like what?
Yeah, yeah, he's
No,
long.
is crazy. No, it's so they're like real superheroes. Yeah, no, they're a pretty cool guy, but especially Saint Pierre is a big fan of comic books. I don't know
Oh,
you
I
have
didn't know
seen.
that.
Yeah, you see uh, in most of their pictures, there he's wearing superhero t-shirt.
Well, I admire the way he comported himself as well as his fighting skills. He's not a loudmouth.
He's very
Uh,
composed.
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, but no, he was. Who was his last fight? I can't remember. But was really no. But you saw it in Captain America.
Is that the guy's nickname? Oh, no, no, that was George. You're right. Yeah, I have that movie.
Yeah, I didn't knew that was him until later because it happened so fast. It's Batroc. It's a French villain of
Yeah, well, that was very
Captain
good
America.
casting. I wish that they would give Batroc a bigger role, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. No, but that's great. No, I
Now,
love that.
my
Sorry.
favorite kung fu movies are the Ip Man series starring Donnie Yen.
Okay. And
And
for any special reason,
you haven't seen them?
uh, can you tell me one so we can?
Yeah, let me
I
post
can.
a poster for you.
Yeah. No, but there are some crazy martial art movies these days. And you try to portray that on your comic books a little.
Whenever we do martial arts, and I do a lot of them in my comics,
Uh, you take it
we
very seriously.
very seriously, we choreograph it very realistically.
Mm,
This is something I've always been hung up on because when I started reading comics, uh, you'd you'd see the Hulk waving a fist and five people flying off the panel. All you see is their feet, and
yeah.
that's not what I wanted to see. I
Mm,
wanted to see the fight develop in a realistic and dynamic manner where we actually see techniques being used.
mm,
Interesting things like wrist locks and reversals and spinning kicks, and see how they develop.
mm,
Uh,
yeah.
and that's why I believe that if you're doing a fight scene in a comic, you have to be like a good director, like the director of Ip Man, in that you hold your camera steady and you let your characters move. You don't flash around, you don't do close ups, you don't pull way back, you show a fight.
Yeah. So where is the movie?
It's
You
on
post
your Facebook page.
on my Facebook. Okay. Yeah, of course. I think that's why I love of your run with the Punisher. That it felt very real because sometimes you get captured. You know.
Oh,
It's
thank
like,
you.
yeah, and I think there's a more real stuff that you can do. It's like sometimes there are just too many guys, you know. Yeah, and you don't have superpowers,
No.
so that's cool.
Have you
IP
seen The Raid?
IP man, mentor of icon legend Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee. Sorry, what you were?
Have you seen The Raid, a Philippine movie?
The raid? No, it's good.
It's very good, mostly for the action, and the choreography is magnificent. There's not much in the way of character development, but your jaw just drops because I would say at least 60% of the movie is fighting.
Really?
Yeah,
Well, but is kind of real or is just
very
spectacular?
real. It's very Filipino. It's a Philippine style uh, martial arts, which is a lot of joint manipulation.
Yeah, a little like Aikido.
Yes, yes. Now there's a bunch
Mm.
of these out, but here's one of them. Because each of those Southeast Asian countries has its their own kung fu cinema. They're all different.
Yeah, and what it when you start to practice martial arts, was it when you were kind of very young or
I started when I was about 25.
okay? Oh, that's cool. Yeah, because sometimes it's so it sucks when in a movie or in a comic they you can see that the people who write didn't know nothing about it. So it's like kind of impossible situations.
Some of Jet Li's movies are very good too,
Yeah, Jet Li, you have done very spectacular stuff.
like Unleashed. It's the Luc Besson film.
Luc Besson. Uh, so I wrote IP Man.
Though that's it. Those are all the Donnie Yen movies.
There are four.
Four.
Okay.
They're all great.
Yeah. No, but I know that guy. He's so he was okay. He was learning from Bruce Lee itself.
Yeah, and Bruce Lee appears in the fourth movie.
That's crazy. Oh, that's great.
Donnie Yen has more hair than Ip Man did.
Yeah, for sure. So you were saying that at the moment you are not reading too much comic
Not
books these
comics,
days.
not comics. I'm always reading four books.
Yeah. And you ever read some, I don't know, like European comic books or something like that?
Yeah. In fact,
In fact, I'm not. Oh,
I read
okay.
all these because I'm doing a series for them.
Oh, that's great.
And when I was young, I got the Drouet books
Hmm.
about Lone Sloan. And of course, they were in French. I didn't understand what the story was. But the art, do you know what I'm talking about? Drouet, Lone Sloan?
Dway.
Druillet. He was a master. He's a monster. He's like the French Steranko. Uh,
How
and he
you
did
write
these.
it? D-U?
Hey, let me find it for you.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, because here in Europe in general, well, here in France, they are a big fan of superhero comic books, but there's another kind of I don't know branch comic books called bande dessinée, and it's
Oh,
it's like trade paperbacks, you know,
oh yeah, I know.
and it could
The
be
albums.
yeah, it could be anything. It could be adventure story, a historic story, sci-fi, or just something very simple like a
This
family moving from the countryside to a city.
this one I just posted, the one most recently that I posted on your page. This is the book that blew my mind. Lone Sloan Delirious.
Mm, Slow okay.
Do you
Juliet,
see it?
Juliet Belov. Yeah, yeah, I have it.
Well, he's an
I
artist like Mobius. I mean, he's just a mind-blowing artist.
Mobius.
I like Mobius stuff too.
Yeah, he. Wow, he's great. He you read the stuff he did for the Silver Surfer?
I have his Silver Surfer book. I think Stan Lee wrote that, and
I think
Mobius.
that was the only appearance in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, I met Mobius once. I had the good
What?
fortune. Oh yeah,
No.
oh yeah. I think it was at the San Diego Comic Con, and Jean-Marc L'Officier and Randy L'Officier were his agents, and they were friends of mine. And I mean, it was just hi, how are you? I admire your work very much, but it was great to meet him.
Yeah, because I think yeah, his style was really kind of really different. And can you tell us a little about this story? Lone
No,
Sloan Delirious?
no,
No.
except that the images were overwhelming. As I said, it was in French, and
Ah, okay. It happened the same with Chuck Dixon. I I I was talking with him last week, and he loved some French comic, but he only see the pictures.
right.
He because
Sometimes it's better that way.
yeah, but
It's like
for me, it's uh, you can find translations because here in France you can find American comic books in French,
sure.
but in United States you can find French comic in English.
I'm sure you can, but it's been my experience that they don't work very well in translation.
Ah,
And
yeah.
it's not because the translations aren't good, it's because the stories aren't very good. And one example was these
Mm.
I'd been collecting Chinese kung fu comics wherever I could. I'd go to Chinatown on the West Coast and I'd buy them all up. Um, and the art just blew my mind. It just blew my mind. It was so exciting and dynamic and different. And then later, years later, I was asked to translate those comics into English. Well, of course, I don't speak Mandarin
Mm.
or what's the other Chinese language?
But Chinese? No, no, it's Mandarin or well, I don't know.
All
I don't
right,
want to.
but anyhow, so they were
I don't want
prepared
to
for
lie
me
to you.
by guys that did the pre-translation. It was a very crude approximation of what the people were saying. It was up to me to give it a polish
Mm.
so that it would appeal to a Western audience. And I was very disappointed that the stories had no internal consistency, and that
Mm.
things would their statuses would change from page to page depending on what they wanted to draw.
Ah, okay. So it was not that good surprise.
Cantonese is the other Chinese language. There's Mandarin and Cantonese. I think these were in Cantonese.
Mm.
Uh, and I was flown over to Hong Kong by Tony Wong, the publisher. Uh, and I lived there for 10 days, and I worked on the comics, and I saw his assembly line, his enormous bullpen, where he had all these artists, dozens of artists in a single room, passing the pages down. One did nothing but characters, another did nothing but trees, another did nothing but backgrounds. And that's one of the reasons that the art was so enthralling, because these guys, by just concentrating on a portion of the image, were able to give it their all. And of course, there were star artists over there who did everything. And I have some of their work today. I doubt if there's any Hong Kong comic book industry left.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, that's kind of sad because I think the comic book industry is kind of like I don't know. Uh, what are your
In a
feelings about
tailspin, in a tailspin.
it? Kind of. I don't know. What are your impressions? What?
Well, I think that traditional comics are dying, and by that I mean Marvel and DC
Mm,
and some lesser publishers. And I'll tell you why. There are a number of reasons. And the big undiscussed reason is the rise of the video game. The
mm,
fact is that a good video game gives you much more value for your dollar than a $4 or $5 comic. I know, because I have dipped in from time to time over the years to see what Marvel and DC are doing, and the stories do not grab me by the throat. And as a
mm,
writer, that's my goal. I always seek to grab the reader by the throat and get him so involved in the story that he
mm,
resents it every time he has to look up. I mean, that's when you know you have a good story.
mm,
Now, the second reason is the bad stories. I mean, the first is the rise of the video game, but it goes hand in hand with bad writing.
mm,
And by bad writing, I mean a bunch of people standing around talking like aimless 20 somethings. There's no narrative drive. A story is a dynamic narrative with a beginning, a middle, and an end. And the reader has to care before he turns the page. The essential question in all fiction is, what happens next? Well, how do you make the reader care?
mm,
You use every trick in the book. You have a dynamic character who's appealing. You have somebody with whom the reader can identify. You have an exciting storyline. Maybe you have a seductive narrative voice. Maybe you have a fabulous setting, but a fabulous setting by itself ain't going to do it. It's got to be the writing. Stuff has to make sense. We know what good writing is. We've discussed Better Call Saul and
yeah,
Breaking Bad. That's good writing. It grabs
yeah,
you by the throat. But
mm,
forever Better Call Saul, there are a dozen half-assed TV shows that aren't even trying, where the writers seem to be on autopilot and delivering prep
yeah.
speeches. And one of the problems with the
But
mainstream
that's
comics were,
come back. What I was saying before is the room for experimentation, the room for creativity. I think that's kind of something that it lacked these days. You know.
it all comes down to the writer. The greatest special effect you can have is a good script, and that
Yeah,
requires a
but if
writer.
you don't have a space, so the writer could, go nuts and do everything they can, and what you say, like captain the imagination, make the people care about the character. That I think is when things get complicated, because creativity is not you know, like a machine that you can. I think maybe for me that's a problem with Marvel and DC. They just want to, keep making
The,
money
the
and
problem is that they hire people who don't know how to entertain.
yeah, maybe.
That's it. It's bad writing. Bad writing.
Yeah, but even a good people that know how to write and you put it in a stressful situation, I say, yeah, I finished my story. No, you can do that.
I
What?
don't know. I mean, there are writers that we know will entertain, like Alan Moore
Adam
or
Moore is great.
Chuck Dixon.
Chuck Dixon. You have
And
like a kind of favorite writers, like colleagues that you like what they do.
well, I mentioned Alan and Chuck. I think Neil Gaiman knows how to spin a tale.
Mm,
Uh, uh, Stray Bullets by David Lapham. It's
mm,
David's been doing this for a long time by himself. They're crime stories, but they're very gripping and they're very grim. They're not for everybody. A lot of people would find them too depressing and in some places horrible. But the one thing that I like about them is that they reek of reality. When you
Yeah.
hear his characters speaking, you hear them speak. It doesn't sound phony. It's not artifice. It's the way people speak.
Yeah, of course.
I'm losing my voice here, Ivan.
Oh, sorry. Maybe we were gonna stop now because, well, I really
I'll
thank
be
you.
happy to do this with you again. We can pick it up where
Yeah,
we left
yeah, of
off.
course. It's really interesting to pick your brain, and I'm sure you have many stories to tell.
This isn't
And
live. This isn't live now, is it? You're going to put this up for broadcast?
is live.
It is?
Yeah, you can saw it on your Facebook page.
All right. Send me a link.
Yeah, of course. And just to finish, um, I will invite everyone to go to bloodyredbaron.com. Is there when most all the people can be, have your news or your new projects, your
Well, no. The best way to keep up on what I'm doing is on Twitter at Bloody Red Baron or at my Mike Baron author page on Facebook. As I said, we've neglected the website. I'm happy it's there. There's
okay,
tons of entries for people to read. But I need to get back to it and make it more vital, and we're going to revamp the whole thing.
okay. So don't go there.
No, go there,
Go
go
there.
there. I'm not ashamed of anything. I'm
Okay,
just saying it's
but
going to
maybe
get better.
there's a link to Facebook here. No,
There's probably no link because we don't know what
contact,
we're doing.
contact. Well, don't worry. I will
Yeah,
help you with that. And just go to your Facebook or your Twitter account. They can
Mike
find
Barron
you.
on Facebook
Yeah, Mike Baron on Facebook, Mike Baron on,
and Bloody Red Baron on
Twitter.
Twitter.
Bloody Red Baron.
Bloody Red
That's,
Baron.
that's funny. So I really thank you. And well, your novel is available now, I think.
Tons of them.
Yeah. So I really thank you.
Thank you,
And,
Ivan.
and well, maybe we can talk another
I'd be happy to do that. I'll have a glass of water next time.
time. Okay.